Hi, this is Indus, founder and CEO of Quolum. Welcome to Quolum Live. Let me introduce the speaker of this session, Sri Ramanathan. Sri is the CTO of AI engineering at Genpact. Earlier, he was the group vice president at Oracle's cloud platform for bots and mobility. Sri has also authored more than 100 patents. He will share new platform shifts, key trends powering an exponential increase in SaaS apps, and how AI-first SaaS products will likely emerge, and how industry leaders are adopting and adapting to this new opportunity. Sri is joining us from the San Francisco Bay Area.
Look, I think if you ask me, the thing that I'm surprised about and actually excited about is the evolution of the human interface. You know, I don't think there's any doubt that today the cloud by itself is the delivery mechanism for any technology. I mean, whether it's something vanilla like a single tenant system or all of the SaaS multi-tenant offerings that you see out there, it's kind of become the de facto way of delivering software, right? Whether it's software that's focused on consumers or it's an application that's focused on, you know, enterprise use. I think the cloud's here to stay, and what we've seen with COVID is the acceleration of the adoption of the cloud. I mean, that's clear. And the thing that I'm most enthused about is the rapid evolution of the human interface, you know, from the old days of, you know, just a mouse and keyboard, you know, down to, you know, web apps and mobile applications, and the fact that, you know, there's what I call app fatigue. You know, there's too many applications. You know, I think the resurgence of the messaging platforms. You know, you've got billions and billions of interactions going on today, primarily over messaging platforms. You know, the evolution of that to, you know, messaging platforms that let you message with people you do business with, right? Whether it's your bank or your hotel or your, you know, or, you know, your retail store, you know, all of those things, you know, the adoption of messaging channels and voice channels as a means of interacting with technology. I think that's the area that continues to, you know, to impress me. And I think the rate of evolution is such that I think over time, you know, the technology will start the initiation of interaction. Today, most interaction is consumer, you know, initiated, is human initiated. I think you'll see that morph to most interactions and many interactions becoming, you know, cloud initiated or intelligence initiated. I think that's kind of the next wave of the human interfaces evolution. Yeah. You know, when you think about, you know, AI and its application, you know, it's not about, you know, building a platform business around that anymore, you know, where you have tools that let you build or design, build, you know, test, manage, and run, you know, models of a variety of shapes and sizes, right? It's more about what they do, right? So the infrastructure and plumbing to go build some amazing models is there, right? It's been there. And I think that will continue to incrementally evolve. I think the killer use cases in the enterprise are all around very specific, nuanced use cases that are unique to specific domain. So for example, if you're in HR, you know, the use cases of AI around, you know, how you better recruit, hire, manage, incubate, and grow talent, you know, for example, you know, and therefore, how do you, you know, apply AI to each of those facets? How you manage, you know, the massive amounts of data that you need to actually, you know, curate and grow and tune your models, right? And so I think the evolution of AI in the enterprise is going to depend on, you know, the use cases around which SaaS vendors truly leverage AI to light up what they are already doing, but making them better, right? I mean, at the end of the day, I think that's the goal of AI. It's not to come up with any radical net new use cases, to take whatever it is you do really well and do it even better and much better using the power of AI. You know, I think that's the evolution path that I see. Yeah. Look, when I think about the market, I've always looked at 4GL, for example, the 4GL application development tools, and the promise of being able to build, you know, great apps, but with just the skills of what we call a citizen developer or a business analyst, those types of personas, and how they could leverage the power of technology to build compelling, valuable, beautiful apps, right? And I do believe a lot of good work has gone in there, but I think the market, the low-code market, largely targets, you know, uh, people who are non-technical. And what I've seen in the whole low-code, no-code space is the need to constantly, you know, guardrail you, in the way that you develop, you give them certain guardrails, and as long as they stay within those guardrails, they're probably able to accomplish quite a bit, right? I think there are two issues there. One is the user interface, right? How you manage to continue to elevate the user interface. So that's been an ongoing challenge in that market. And the second is ultimately when you're doing a tools business, when you have a low code or no code platform, your goal via all of these is only to increase consumption of runtimes. So tools are, where you make some great investments and very important investments, and primarily with the goal of driving value and usage of all of your runtimes, right? And one of the problems I see is how you target developers, right? Targeting real developers with low code, no code tools is has to be done in a way that gives them this trapdoor where they can, get out and get access to all of the knobs that they typically don't have. So I think that's one of the areas, where a lot of the low code vendors are trying to strike the right balance when you look at the space, so they can appeal to a certain class of citizen developer, but also take care of, the regular dev, right? Who's looking for not just developer efficiency, but he's also looking for fine grained control. The notion of a bot has evolved, right? So, I'd say 3-4 years ago was all about intent detection and entity extraction, right? I mean, you have a simple piece of text, and the goal of the runtime interaction was to, determine your intent, extract all of your entities, slot filling, and then go execute and invoke the same APIs that the web app or mobile app did, right? That was very simple and constrained. A lot of, very simple sentences going back and forth. I think intent detection has gotten a lot better. You've got multi-intent paragraphs. You're able to, determine what we call associated intents. You're able to, handle multi-class entities. You're able to do a lot more, from a text perspective, and really from a technology perspective, a voice bot, when it comes to the actual development, you go use a platform that converts voice to text, and you're back to the same text bot when it comes to, the way you actually go and implement it. So you focus on text all the time in the back end, right? But I think there's certainly been a lot of evolution from consumer use cases slowly to enterprise use cases. And I certainly, I think that's going to evolve. I think the evolution path for bots, whether they're, plain text bots or they're voice bots, I think the evolution point is going to be, where the bot becomes smart enough over time and starts doing stuff for you and informing you. It sees you doing a bunch of things at the same time, everywhere, or at a particular location. It understands the context with which you do things, based on a variety of context variables. And then it asks you if it should start doing them for you. And then the next click stop it does it and just tells you. So I think that's where things will head in the next 5 years. And the technology is certainly, getting to the point where it's actually there, right? It's one of those things that's another classic example of the consumerization of IT, so to speak. In other words, a lot of the technologies that we take for granted today, whether it's the cloud or whether it's big data or even AI, certainly mobility. I mean, they did not come out of the IBMs and Hewlett Packards of the world. They came from consumer companies that were focused on elevating the consumer experience. And as a result of which, heavy investments were needed on some of these foundational technologies. And, whether it's for virtualization of the cloud, or whether it was, big data, or whether it was mobility, and now with AI, the innovation has come from companies that were heavily focused on the consumer, and they made their way drip by drip into the enterprise, right? And that certainly applies here. I think people are used to a certain level of experience in their personal lives, whether it's Alexa, or whether it's Siri, or whether it's a messaging interface that's very helpful using a lot of messaging technologies. And I think the expectation in an enterprise is not just that their consumer apps should be consumer grade. It's actually that the employee apps, the B2E apps, those boring apps that people use in their day-to-day lives to do work, elevate that experience as well to the same level of consumer experience they have in their personal lives. I think that's one of the big drivers for the adoption of this technology. So I think keeping that UX, front and center. And when I say UX, I'm not just referring to a UI on a web browser, but the actual experience of interacting, the human interface itself, and the experience of interaction there. I think that's what we keep in mind front and center when we're looking at adoption for enterprise apps. Well, I'll be upfront with you. It's my expense app. I think, look, I have like 6-7 million miles. Constant travel. Last 2 decades. It's actually one of those things that in the current context of the pandemic that I'm really quite happy about, the fact that I'm not traveling. But I think one thing, that the process of keeping track of uh, what it is you're doing and spending money on, I cannot believe why and how we cannot leverage AI to just automate that entire thing. I do not look forward to continue to have to use that app, but my suspicion is, given the rate of adoption, that there will be something, albeit a lot easier to use, that will still be there in some form. Because I think some things are never going to change. I believe there's a lull in travel, but very soon, once we get past where we are, people will start traveling again. You'll have to go meet customers. There'll be problems. Your products aren't working. You have to go sell your products. So global travel will pick back up. And I think this type of app I'm talking about will still unfortunately be there. I just hope it's a lot better. I would love a chance to rewrite it and reimagine that whole experience. I think, again, this is an example of corporate bureaucracy where there is a lot of opportunity for improvement. You look at the number of approvals you have to give, despite already having established very detailed caps for everybody on your organization. And, I like to run teams that are empowered, self-sustaining, where the leaders have complete authority over, the budgets and spending controls that are already in place. I think there's an opportunity to make the process better, where you are just, that something is okay to do, and you do it. System approves a whole bunch of things for you, and the AI just informs you and gives you consolidated lists, right? And gives you consolidated summaries, and it gives you guidance on where there could potentially be problems, not this quarter, but perhaps next quarter. So you watch out, right? So I think there's certainly, I think a lot of room for the application of some technology there. I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you very much.